Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Hey friends, how was your weekend? If you're like most of us, this past weekend was daylight savings time, right? And as my husband said, it was the bad one, the one where we lose the hour of sleep. This is a time of year where we are thinking about resets or refreshes, right? We're supposed to change the batteries in our smoke detector and, move into daylight savings time for most of us. Now, we could have a big, long discussion about whether or not we still need daylight savings time. I happen to live in one of the states that has been trying to do away with it, and it's getting stuck somewhere with the federal government. It's not the thing that I think they should be focusing on right now, my friends. But it's got me thinking about the energy around resets, refreshes, and recharges. It's really common when we are finding ourselves a little tired, a little worn down, maybe a little bit cranky, that we get this sense in our body that something needs to change. Or maybe we just feel like we are stuck. We're not sure exactly what needs to shift. But sometimes we will end up throwing the wrong amount of energy into something, and that is never good. If you've ever gone through the house with a big black trash bag, like, big black trash bag energy is what the lazy genius calls it. And just like gathered up a whole bunch of stuff and gotten rid of it and then later regretted it. This is exactly what we're talking about. We're trying to figure out right now, today, what do we need to reset? What do we need to refresh? What do we need to recharge? Being able to figure out what we actually need in the moment in terms of, what we need in our body, what energy we do or don't have, and what we're actually looking for can be incredibly helpful. So if you've ever, again, sort of gone through with big black trash bag energy, today is the day for you. Let's think about these three words: reset, refresh, and recharge, and compare and contrast them a little bit. When we think about a reset, I want us to think about connecting back to values, purpose, joy. Think that we're a little bit out of alignment and we're just trying to reset back on track. This will often come up where we just need sort of small intentional shifts, and there will be sort of bigger and smaller moments where this might come up, but basically we are really trying to recenter and reconnect with parts of ourselves. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Refresh has a bigger energy around it, and the definition I found was giving new strength or energy to, right? New strength or energy. When we think about a refresh, we're going to think about something on a bigger scale, and it may not be massive, but there is going to be more energy going into that because it is something bigger. You can think of it, we're needing a bigger, I hate to use the term facelift, not really thinking about plastic surgery, but something bigger than just a quick tidy. All right. And then recharge. Recharge means our batteries are low. We have very little energy, very little creative energy or creativity just in general. We are feeling really empty. We may still misread that as needing a big refresh, but as we'll talk about, that is not the time to go and do something big. It is the time to realize, no, it is time to plug the batteries in, right? And recharge them. We're not necessarily out of alignment with our values, our purpose, or our joy, but the gas tank is empty and it's time to do the things that will refill it. Now, as we talk in a little bit more detail about each of these areas, reset, refresh, recharge, I'm going to invite you to think about it without your phone. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is I think that for so many of us, when we think about resetting, refreshing, recharging, we're thinking about it in conjunction with our phones. We each of us have these pretty powerful computers that follow us around in our pockets all day. And raise your hand, and my friends, me too, right? When you're feeling a little bit low, when you're feeling frustrated or angry or tired, you reach for your phone to try and find some kind of entertainment. You might also, when you're in that refresh energy, think, oh, I got to overhaul this whole thing, right? And you download a bunch of new apps or you get rid of all your apps. You're doing this major overhaul. I want us to think about this more holistically, more from the perspective of us and our bodies, and not in terms of, systems and digital space. There can be some places for that, but I think more often we are trying to turn to our phones to recharge our batteries, and that's not going to do it. We could think about ways that we can, reset ourselves with our phones, but I actually want us to get off the damn phone, right? Our phones have replaced pagers for most of us. We might constantly be texting. It's replacing a lot of verbal communication. And there are times and places for that. I've had a lot of arguments lately with my almost 14-year-old who desperately wants a smartphone and is definitely not getting one this year. But, he says, oh, you're on your phone a lot. I'm like, yeah, like we can't actually do our jobs anymore without being on our phone. But it is a double-edged sword, right? Because you might go in to do something work related and you might find yourself getting stuck. So again, for the sake of today, when we think about things that will help us reset, refresh, recharge, I want us to not use our phones to be doing that. We are trying to think about how our bodies feel. We are trying to think about what we actually think in our own brains, not ChatGPT. So let's use that. Now, ironically, you're probably listening to me on your phone in some capacity for this podcast, but we're going to put that part aside because there is not another way to do that unless you are listening on your laptop, which most of us are not going to be doing. So let's start with reset. Reset is the way that we get back into alignment. So think about you are going through your day, it's grinding on, perhaps it's the middle of the day. Perhaps you are running behind, perhaps you're in between patients, maybe you've come to your midday break, which some people would call your lunch break. Whatever that is, you're noticing that your energy is just kind of dragging or kind of negative. A reset is trying to get back in alignment with staying in your values or connecting with your purpose or connecting with some kind of joy. For me, what I find myself doing, and I keep chuckling when I notice myself doing this, is when I go out to get my next patient, I room my own patients. When I hit the doorway of my exam room, which leads me to a very short hallway out to our lobby, I notice that I automatically put a smile on my face. Now, I've shared this before, and in past times, I will tell you this would not have worked for multiple reasons. But because I have done work on the way that I think about the work that I'm doing, and I'm living more in my values and purpose, when I put that smile on my face, it's the brain thing that happens, right? When we have a smile on our face, there is a part of our brain that thinks that we are happier. Now, the reason I say that this would not work in other times, if I was really angry, if I was very cynical, and I've definitely been in the place where I was really deep in that, and we're going to talk about that when we get to recharge. Putting a smile on my face probably would not have worked, right? The smile on your face cannot override feeling really down, angry, depressed, like you're really out of alignment with your values, right? So we're not talking about that. We aren't talking about plastering a smile on our face and gritting our teeth at the same time. What we're talking about is where our body can take something that we've done with our muscles and feed it back to our brain, and our brain gets the message, we've had an emotional reset. When I put the smile on my face, I notice that my shoulders settle. I notice that I am sort of emotionally ready for the next patient. And I chuckle because the other day I was seeing several patients sort of back to back that were, I'm just going to say, they're some of my more difficult patients. And I'm always a little bit stressed when I see them. But in doing my little reset, right? Smile on my face, going out to get one, right after I had seen the other one, I just noticed how it landed in my body. And I wanted to make sure that we talked about that today, because that little reset helps me to get through my day, and it helps you to get through your day as well. What are other resets? So we can literally, again, sort of connect with emotional centers in our brain. That's not the right words for it, but I'm not a neuropsychologist, so that's what I'm going to say. What other things can we do besides smiling between patients? Naming what you feel, right? If you notice that you're feeling kind of frustrated, then taking a moment to say, I feel frustrated. I am feeling frustrated, right? Can help us to just have some awareness of our emotional state, and we have a brief moment to see, is that how I want to feel right now, right? We might do something in that moment that helps us to relieve the frustration. We might connect, oh, yeah, it's really normal that I feel frustrated because X, Y, or Z thing happened. We might decide that we're going to shake our hands, right? And sort of try and move that energy out of our bodies. We might, especially if it's midday and we have a few minutes, we might go outside, right? And just get some fresh air. When we do any of those little things, we are resetting, right? Because we are centering ourselves in our bodies. We are getting out of the thought loops that are in our heads. And that can help us to connect with our purpose, right? So think of a reset as one of these, generally going to be, most of the time, is going to be a smaller activity, but it's something that kind of brings you back into connection with yourself, and something probably aligned with your values, your purpose, or your joy. You can think about when you are getting yourself set for the end of the week, or perhaps it's the end of the weekend, right? And maybe you've, tidied your desk before you leave for the weekend. Perhaps you put out your exercise clothes on Sunday night, right? So that they're ready to go on Monday morning. Those things are resets. And it's a chance for us to just, again, notice sort of what's going on in our bodies, to notice what our intentions are, to connect with the things that we want to be doing for ourselves. In the example that I gave with the smile, when I put a smile on my face and I trick my brain into just being in a more, pleasant or neutral position, I'm not trying to falsify niceness, and I'm not trying to fake my way into, feeling overjoyed to see this person. But what I am doing is I'm shifting that energy around so that it is easier for me to go and connect with that human as we figure out, what they're needing in that day. So again, think of resets as usually going to be small activities that will connect ourselves in our bodies. And sometimes that's all we need in order to get through the rest of our day, get through the rest of our week, set ourselves up for the week ahead, whatever it is. Now, let's contrast that with the energy around refresh. So again, this definition of refreshing as to give new strength or energy to, this feels bigger. So if we think about what would somebody do to refresh a room, right? They're probably not just going to tidy their desk. Refreshing a room, we would think about, oh, maybe we're going to repaint it. Maybe we're going to move around the furniture. Maybe we're going to, shift where we are storing things. It's got a bigger energy around it. And there are absolutely times when we need a refresh. Maybe we're transitioning from one major life stage to another. Maybe we're moving into a new job. Maybe we are, moving seasons. Maybe it's not something like that, but you just realize that who you are now is not fitting something else about your life. You think about something, kind of superficial like a wardrobe change. Maybe the clothes that are in your closet match you as your 20-something resident-year-old self, but now you are maybe in your mid 30s and maybe you're a parent, maybe you're an attending. You've got different things going on, and it's time to refresh because you look in your closet and you say, these things aren't me anymore. So refresh has bigger energy. It has bigger change involved to it. And it's not always going to be something like that, right? Where we're getting rid of things that we own, but it's a time to really look at the way that we are living or doing something and figure out, I need a new system here. I need to clarify what the values are. I need to make sure that the things that I'm picking are in alignment with who I am now, what is going on in my life, what I want for myself. So we can see that that is bigger than a reset. But sometimes we're going to confuse those two. And, if we think about the energy around a refresh, it's easy to go grab the big black trash bag and scoop up all the stuff that doesn't feel like it's in alignment, right? If we're talking about physical things, and throw them in the bag and, toss it away. That part is easy. What is hard, though, is figuring out, what are the values that I have now? What are the things that I need? What is the system that makes sense? If you can think about, again, that trash bag energy where maybe your desk is just fully cluttered with stuff. It's piled with charts and envelopes, and you don't even know what any of it is. It's going to take you time and energy to sit through and look through all of those things. And our desire to clear out the clutter, we have to match our energy around that. I think it's important that we are really thinking about it in that way, right? Because it's easy, again, to come and sort of clear the decks and to imagine that we're magically going to be different. But if we are needing to realign with our values and sort of figure out who we are now, what we need in this stage, it is going to take some thought. It is going to take some probably physical and emotional energy to do that. And we're going to need to also accept the discomfort of doing something new and different. If we think about the energy around, I don't know, let's say changing the way that you have your room organized, maybe your desk, maybe you want to go paperless. There is going to be discomfort because papers are still going to come to you, and you're still going to need to figure out, if I don't do paper anymore, how do I manage the things that come in? If I'm going to use a silly example here. If I'm getting a new wardrobe, right, and it's very different from what I've worn before, I'm going to need to figure out, how do I make decisions around what I'm going to wear or decide what goes with what? Refresh has a bigger energy to it. And that's not right or wrong. There's definite times where we need that. Again, think about you're ready for a new job. A new job is going to come with the discomfort of being new, of not knowing where the bathroom is or what the culture is like. There are definitely times when that is desired and normal and appropriate. And we need to really be able to connect with what energy we've got and be able to see, all right, do I have space for that? Or am I looking for something else? Right? I think a lot of the time when something else is going on, where we're needing a reset or a recharge, we might reach for that refresh button and it's going to be too much. It's not going to work. And so let's move on to recharge. What's going on in recharge? Recharge is when the batteries are low. You might be tired, you might be overwhelmed, you might be struggling with anxiety or depression or insomnia. You might simply be tired because you worked a really long week, or maybe you've got a newborn at home, right? There are things going on in your life. Your energy levels are quite low. Your creativity might be very low. The bandwidth and the resources that you have might be low. In those moments, we might think that it's time for a refresh. We might think, I'm tired of all of this. I'm tired of feeling this way. And obviously, I need to change jobs. Obviously, I need to get that trash bag right and clear everything out. We're confusing what we need in those moments because what we really need is to refresh the battery, to not refresh the batteries. My goodness, I'm stumbling over here. What we really need is to recharge the batteries. In those moments, what do we need? We need rest. We need support. We might need more time unplugged and, disconnected. And I don't mean disconnected in a bad way, but I mean unplugged. I mean, okay, I'm mixing metaphors a little bit here, but what I mean is a time where you just get to be human, where you are not connected through your phone to all the people that need you, where you can step away from your responsibilities, where you can just feel human. This might look like taking a day to rest or a weekend. It might look like taking medical leave. I was talking with a physician about this lately. And this is the thing that comes up. We do not have great mechanisms for being able to take a recharge often in our schedules. And sometimes we have to employ FMLA or some other kind of leave in order to be able to get that deeper recharge when we're really struggling. But what's really important to see here is that when we are needing a recharge, it is not the time to go and dump out the systems, to empty the closet, to throw away everything. Recharge is the time that we need to recharge the batteries, that we need to get our supports in place, that we need to, really fill up the tank. It's easy to confuse these things. If you are feeling like you're really struggling, then resets don't work, right? When I was really pretty deep in burnout, I was crying on the drive into work. I was really struggling. And that was a time that I came back into getting some therapy. Actually didn't discover coaching for quite some time afterwards. But I did end up taking some leave. I got to a place where I couldn't sleep and I was just so riddled with anxiety, I couldn't see straight. I needed a deeper recharge. And the little things that were part of the resets that we talked about earlier, putting a smile on my face, that was not going to cut it, right? Even taking a day to myself, that wasn't going to cut it. I was in need of something more than that. And so it's really important that we not try and confuse these things for each other. Resets are smaller, and resets are realigning with our energy. Refreshes might be really needing to sort of re-explore our values and our purpose, right? Or update something that is no longer in alignment, on a more macro level, right? The wardrobe is the silly example. Deciding that you need to move to a different job is a different example. And yes, it's possible that you might need a refresh and a recharge at the same time, but I would encourage us to not try and dump everything when we are in need of a recharge. When we are needing a recharge, we really need to be well rested. We need to be well supported. We need to feel human again, because otherwise we're not going to make the greatest decisions. Now, I know in a perfect world, these things can't always happen, right? Sometimes we have to jump ship out of toxic situations. That is very real. But a lot of us are not quite in those circumstances. And again, I think we need to be mindful of, what do I actually need right now? So again, resets, getting back in alignment with our values, our purpose, our joy, and often going to be small actions, small moments, but these can make a real difference in our day-to-day. Refresh has a bigger energy around it, right? We're really needing to shake up, reevaluate, maybe restate what our values are in this phase of our lives. And sometimes that's going to be removing old things and putting in new things. That might be old clothes, might be new systems, right? Again, it might be shifting jobs, but that is a bigger task. And it's really important to be mindful when you're feeling really a need for a reset or a recharge, that you don't go and throw everything out. Recharge, our batteries are low, our energy, our creativity, they're low, right? And we need to focus on filling our cup before we think these other things are going to work. Again, there might be overlap between these two things. I'm just going to continue to state, we need to know when we really, really need a break, because frankly, our lives are at stake. But being able to step back from where you're at and decide, which of these things am I needing right now, can really be important for figuring out, how do I live my life with more purpose? How do I continue to practice medicine or find something new in my life and feel happy and balanced and like I'm doing what I am meant to do, right? That's connecting with our purpose. When we are able to use these three things effectively, we are just going to be more ourselves. We are going to be more human. And that's what most of us are looking for. My friends, that's what I have for you today. I hope this has been helpful. Really think, reset, refresh, recharge. How am I using these? What might I need to do differently? You might think about creating a list of things that you do when you need to reset, and or maybe when you need to recharge. Refresh, we don't always know what that's going to bring, but resets can be small things that have you feeling more like yourself. Recharge are generally going to be bigger things. It might be as simple as making sure you get a really good night's rest, but it's probably going to need more than that, because we let our energy get pretty damn low. All right, my friends, until next time, take care.
Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.